Well, hello good people, I'm Dmitry. There have been so many fantastic, lightweight, affordable mice releases on the market lately that I want to cover some of these that are actually worth considering and check out what these under-the-radar mice are all about. Shall we? So basically, if you're looking for a lightweight option, you've come to the right place because all these mice range in weight quite significantly from 49 grams all the way up to 90 grams. And they all cater to a slightly different user because of the shape. So these four mice have been kind of like in my personal rotation as I get to experience just how good or bad these options really are, which allowed me to kind of work with my aim trainers and actually get more confidence for online play. And these include the $59 Pulsar Xlite, the $29 Katar Pro XT from Corsair, the Ninjutso Origin ONE X at $79, which is the most expensive mouse in this roundup, and the Drevo Falcon wireless at just $50. What's awesome is that all of these mice are actually available to purchase, links below, and they all have their slight different quirks that are not just copy-paste of each other. So if you've already seen our previous recommendations and previous mice roundups, you, my friend, have come to the right place because these are some of the best lightweight and affordable options for 2021 guaranteed. Do you want your processor to feel immense pressure and incredible cooling? Gotta get the Glacier One. The Fantex all-in-one coolers come in 240, 280, and 360 variants with the all-new Acetec pump design that's as powerful and quiet, plus this infinity mirror cap that further muffles the pump noise and adds gorgeous ARGB illumination. You get an easy mounting system, high static pressure fans that you can daisy chain for simple routing, and a set of clips for tube management. Ooh, the Glacier One coolers by Fantex. Check them out below. Okay, so let's start with one of the most interesting mice to hit my space, the Pulsar Xlite. It's not crazy expensive, but it is crazy light at 49 grams, which is what I'm used to with my main MM720 mouse. We got the PAW 3370 sensor, which is considered to be like the end game of sensors, with Omron 20 million click switches. The mouse comes with grip tape, which is so fantastic to see because the mouse is super lightweight, so you want to have a bit more control while handling the mouse. And I found that placing grip tape on the right trigger gave me like fantastic control where I don't really need it anywhere else, and just having that middle finger a bit more secured on the mouse, wow, what a difference. Also, an extra set of PTFE feet is included for later swapping, and this little thing which they call a micro bungee. You attach it below your monitor and it raises the cable to avoid cable drag. And the cable, by the way, is slightly thicker versus like the Razer Vipers, which is nothing to complain about. It's nice and light. Now, the most interesting thing about the Xlite is the shell, because half of it is basically missing underneath with that visible PCB. I have never seen anything like it, and this allows Pulsar to, one, shave off some weight, but also really give it to many other manufacturers of delivering such a fantastically built mouse, because nothing is creaking, there's no flex anywhere in the body, in the usual side-to-side like pressing. And that is really impressive. Shape-wise, it is ergonomic. It is a slightly higher body versus what I normally use, but still a very comfortable shape for my hand size. Flicking with this mouse is perfect, but I do need to reduce my DPI below 800 to give me extra control because of how light the mouse is. And for some reason, tracking of my targets with this mouse is very poor, not because of the extremely smooth glide, but because of the weight. When you go below 50 grams, it's like a whole new thing where you have to retrain your hand. And the mouse, I mean, it's slightly bigger than my MM720, so my wrist memory is a bit out of whack, especially when it comes to using the same weight but a different shape mouse. So tracking with this one for my play style is a bit more challenging because even with this grip tape and like the slides, everything is smooth, but I feel like it's a bit too light for the size. Whereas the M720 is slightly more low profile and it's just overall like a smaller mouse, but with that one I can track slightly better. So flicking with this thing is fantastic, finding targets on screen is fantastic, but tracking targets, especially for my style, it's a bit difficult. You should also keep in mind there is no DPI switch on the body itself, so you have to go into the software, which is no BS, super simple, but you do have to access it if you want to switch DPI. Lastly, I love the side browser buttons, which feel awesome. The scroll wheel is great too, with a nice light middle click. The primary triggers have slightly longer travel distance versus everything else in this roundup, but it's still nice and crispy and tactile. Take a listen. All right, so let's move on to something a bit more simple. This is the Corsair Katar Pro XT, and in my opinion, for $29, this is the best lightweight option you can buy right now, period. For $29, okay, that's an important bit. It is like a slightly more refined and tuned G203 from Logitech with a 73 gram body, a solid PWM 3391 sensor, Omron 50 million click switches that are my favorite in this roundup, and this is probably the only RGB peripheral on this planet Earth that has proper white illumination. You see that? It's white. It's not like slightly blue or slightly green or slightly red. It is properly white, which I appreciate. And the cable for this price point is awesome too, almost identical to the Xlite mouse, but it's really the shape that will sell. Overall, it feels fantastic, and the weight is that good middle ground between not too light and not too heavy. It's going to offer excellent competition against the G203 and the 305 of the world. The main difference between the G203 are the deeper grooves on the main triggers on the Katar mouse that for me is a positive in terms of comfort, and some texture on the sides that for my thumb is okay, but on my right side where my pinky finger and my ring finger rest is a bit irritating, and I wish that that side was smooth just like the rest of the body. The whole build actually feels a little plastic and kind of cheap, as expected for a $29 price point, but I do like the texture and the overall feeling of the G203 better. But the glide on the Corsair mouse is so much smoother versus Logitech, and also the switches are incredibly lightweight and crispy, really satisfying. Take a listen. The main benefit with this mouse for me is switching between moving targets, and this is the mouse that gives me consistently the best tracking, which is my least improved skill. Strangely, this mouse feels the best at 650 DPI versus my usual 800. And one thing you should also not forget is disable that precision tracking in IQ, which is for some reason enabled by default. Now let's move on to something wireless with the Drevo Falcon wireless. And the only reason it's here is because it's basically a budget version of the G Pro wireless from Logitech. So the shape is 99% identical. It is the heaviest mouse in this roundup, but also super affordable at under $50. The 2.4 gigahertz dongle can be stashed inside the shell, and the USB-C cable can be used for charging with up to 56 hours of battery life with RGB on, or up to 96 hours with it off, but still, it's a pretty cool uniform illumination coming through the honeycomb shell. The sensor is the power-efficient PAW 3335, switches are Omron 20 million clicks, and we have 100% PTFE feet that are black. But you can immediately tell this is a cheap budget variation of what Logitech offers, okay? So there's a lot of creaking on the body, regardless of what you press, sideways from the top. There's something creaking on the inside, even when I hold all the mouse buttons, including the scroll wheel. You can hear there's something rattling inside. And also the scroll wheel is a bit disappointing. The scroll steps are not defined and it's not easy to control. Plus the DPI switch, fantastic to have, but it's so hard to press. Like you would require full-on hand readjustment also to reach it. It's not in the best spot. So overall, build quality is a little bit subpar, but it does give you really good performance. So it is the good points that matter the most. So the primary triggers are almost as light as the G Pro wireless. It has a much smoother glide versus the Logitech offerings. And like I said earlier, the shape is basically a clone of the Pro wireless, so it's extremely comfortable for hybrid and claw grips. The weight balance is actually okay. And this is the mouse that required the most time for my own hand readjustment because of the weight. At 90 grams, it's almost twice the weight of what I'm normally playing with, and so this is something to keep in mind. For example, flicking between each target felt kind of janky, and even though a heavier mouse might give you more control, it is all about that wrist memory. Still though, sensor performance is totally satisfactory for this price range, although I will say the liftoff distance is the highest in this mouse versus everything else in this roundup, something to keep in mind. And even though it was lowered in the lowest position in the driver software, it's still a little bit too high. It does track and catch mouse movement when I'm like hovering around the mouse mat and when it's not exactly placed down. And so let's finish off on another really impressive surprise with Ninjutso Origin ONE X, which claims to be the world's lightest wireless ergonomic lightweight mouse. And to be honest, they're doing so many things right here for the $79 price point with a 66-gram non-honeycomb all solid shell design, following the footsteps of Razer and Logitech, which is amazing. Build quality is totally fine too, nothing creaks, nothing rattles, but like with many mice with similar button design, there is a bit of play on the primary triggers that you can feel with normal use when you go side to side. The sensor here is the same power efficient PAW 3335 with battery life up to 48 hours. The USB dongle is not labeled, nor can it be stored on the mouse, which is a bummer. And that USB-C port for charging is awesome, but it's kind of deep in the body, so none of my cables actually fit in there. It's a good thing that a cable is included. It is a plug-and-play mouse, which is a positive. You don't have to install any drivers, and you have 4 DPI settings that you switch with this button underneath. Unfortunately, because there's no drivers, you don't have precise DPI control. So if any of those don't really work for you, then that kind of sucks. The main selling points, however, are the Kale GM 8.0 80 million switches, which are super crispy and tactile. Take a listen. This also has one of the best scroll wheels I've ever felt on a mouse, with super precise scroll steps to give you a lot of control.
Oh yeah.
We also have massive PTFE feet at the bottom for really smooth glide. And finally, that IntelliMouse Explorer shape. I love the low profile, the ergo curvature, the slight flaring in the front. It's all making me want to switch to the ONE X as my main from now on, because this mouse gives me the best movement on screen for finding targets in all directions, meaning it's almost effortless aiming in all 4 quadrants on screen, something that I realize is a huge advantage for games with a lot of verticality like Quake Champions or EFT. I feel like with all other mice in this roundup, I have some inconsistencies between top, bottom, left, and right aim, whereas with like the Xlite from Pulsar, I'm fantastic at finding targets in my upper portion of the screen, but anytime a target shows up at the bottom, I have some difficulty of like finding it and following it up. Whereas with the ONE X, it is perfect throughout the whole screen. So just like with my main MM720, I feel like the ONE X is almost effortless. Plug and play, I put my hand on this, 800 DPI, and I'm golden. I'm flying around. I feel like I know exactly where the cursor will land through my physical motion. So yeah, I would highly recommend you check this out, and all the other mice in this roundup as well, because I feel like they kind of cater to a different user scenario. You have wireless, you have really lightweight options, you have that middle ground, super affordable ones as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks so much for watching. Check out this other relevant content, subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next video.